Dear guests, dear friends, it's great to see so many, not only guests, but friends here, and from many countries, from many political camps. This shows support for Ukraine is strong in Europe and the West, regardless of political and party conflicts, stronger than political and party conflicts. This is so important. And one more important thing. Ukraine is strong. There is a progress, regardless of some stereotypes. Reality of change, progress, will be stronger than the stereotypes. We will hear about this from our speakers. Only one example of progress I want to mention myself. At our lunch in Munich Security Conference 2019, last year, President of Estonia Kaljulaid said, "Let's shout out of the window, free the prisoners, captured Ukrainian sailors and others." Please watch, please take a look.
President?
We are an important Munich crowd here. If we yell really loud, the windows open, Minister Lavrov will hear us. Release the prisoners. So I think we could do that. Release the prisoners, please.
Thank you very much. And the sailors were freed. Today, they sent their representative to be with us. Oleg Melnichuk, who is commander of the tugboat Yanikapo. Please welcome here. And Stanislav Aseyev, journalist and writer, who was imprisoned by the Kremlin and released just in December 2018 together with other 74 Ukrainian heroes. Please welcome. Thank you very much, President Kaljulaid, for your declaration through the window last year. But at least one of the persons working on it was even more instrumental for that is actually happened than President Kaljulaid. And I'm talking about President of Ukraine, Zelensky. And I know that he will join us very soon after he will finish his meeting with the Secretary General of NATO. By the way, I want to say he just finished his town hall, and from my point of view, it was his fantastic presentation, fantastic talk about Ukraine, Ukrainian challenge, and I think we have to be proud about his speech and his answers to the very tough questions. As I said, there are important success, but there are still prisoners. There are still people dying. There is still very, very much transformation and reform ahead to do. Let's hear how Ukraine and our international friends want to move forward. Richard Haas, President of the Council of Foreign Relations, will moderate. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Munich Security Conference and Wolfgang Ischinger for inviting us to organize this platform. Thank you very much. And Richard, floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Normally the job of welcoming people to anything in Munich is Wolfgang's, and in a second I am going to ask him to do that. What I thought I'd do is just give you a sense of how things are going to go today. We're going to have Prime Minister Kaljulaid. President, I apologize. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. And you clearly passed the quiz and I fail it. Then we will have President Zelensky. But we've also got any number of other ministers who we will hear from, as well as quite a few senators and congressmen from my own country. So we've got a range of experts, and the issues are central about the security challenges that Ukraine faces, about its internal governing challenges, dealing with not just political issues, but obviously economic and the problems of corruption, and obviously its other external issues, not just with the EU, with the IMF, but obviously with the United States. So we will have no shortage of topics to tackle here over the lunch. But again, let me first welcome Herr Botschafter Wolfgang Ischinger here just to make some opening comments before I turn to President Kaljulaid.
Well, I can do it from here. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much, Victor. I am absolutely excited and delighted about the large delegation from Kiev, from Ukraine. I am so pleased that we've been able to arrange for President Zelensky to speak in a kind of format that actually rocks. I think he came across over this last hour as a political rock star of the highest order, and that's good for Ukraine. It's actually also good for the Munich Security Conference. So I'm a happy man at this lunch hour. Just two brief remarks. First, here in the European Union, we often claim that we have created a continent of peace and we don't conduct any wars anymore. It is very important that you Ukrainians remind us and that we remind ourselves that it's actually not true, that there is war still going on, and that we need to make a much greater, more intense collective effort to bring it to an end. That is our task for the weeks and months, hopefully not years ahead. Second remark, part of this effort requires a strong transatlantic bond. And if I say that I'm a happy organizer of the Munich Security Conference this year, I say that because I am very happy that we have again been able to attract such a large delegation from the United States, from the US Congress. I want to say hello to the senators and congressmen here. This is fantastic because this reinforces our not so great European ability to do the kinds of things that we need to do in order to make this continent a peaceful continent and to make Ukraine a free and prosperous member of our community. Thank you very much, Richard.
Okay, so again, as I said, we're going to begin with President of Estonia, President Kaljulaid. And she is going to make some opening remarks. Then hopefully she and I will have time for a few questions. And then with luck, the choreography will come together and President Zelensky will join us. And if not, we have a plan B, so not to worry. Madam President.
Hi all. Yet again, this year, pleased to face you all. And while dear Ischinger was telling he's happy about having such a Ukrainian delegation here, I was looking around, and I have to say I am happy to see such a delegation of Ukrainian friends here in this room. You cannot but win with these kind of friends whom you can have for this lunch. So thank you all for coming, familiar faces in the international scene, and I know we all need to pull hard and keep pulling until there is peace in Ukraine. Because, you know, for 3 years, all the time I've been president, once a week I get a memo about Ukraine. And it starts each week with people who have been injured or dead in the conflict. And I can tell you whatever we think about armistices, so what agreed, not agreed, these numbers keep ticking. They also keep ticking on now, while we are having lunch here. Ukraine is not in a frozen conflict, it's in a forgotten conflict because many people want to forget it. But it's not a frozen, it's a very hot, ongoing conflict, I can assure you. When I went to see the conflict line, my schedule of travel had to be altered because the village I was supposed to visit came under heavy shelling just the evening before. So once, at least in these 3 years, for me, it had been even more practical than just reading these numbers each week. But I keep reading these numbers each week. If needed, I keep reading them out. On the other hand, where I'm more optimistic is Ukraine today. I remember a year ago we met here to discuss choices ahead, and we didn't know which choice the Ukrainian people will really take. Status quo, radical change toward what they knew already, might be. And, Ukrainian people took a brave decision. President Zelensky received in the second round 73% of the vote. This is a huge mandate. This is a mandate which allows a political leader to really change the situation. Since my dear friend Vladimir is not yet here, I can tell you all, but probably most of you know it. If he keeps pushing and doing these reforms, then never mind how good the results would be, this number will come down. This percentage of support will not survive. The task ahead of him is too hard, and we all know it. Yet we also know that he's ready to risk it, because this is why he was elected. He's not one of these political leaders who is satisfied with the post, but he gets up every morning and thinks what to do. How can he use this support? And I can see that he's working hard. Yes, we cannot yet say that, for example, Ukrainian people trust more their judiciary system. The numbers are really low, in the single digits, in fact. But we see that he's working hard to change that. There's the anti-corruption law. There is the first successful reading of the Farmland Bill. But what I really like is that there's also quite a lot of work being done to make Ukrainian people more involved in managing their own country. Devolution of the regions, for example. I would also mention the upcoming land reform. Because for a country which, exited the Soviet Union at the time when my own country, the land reform has been long overdue. If you cannot have land as an asset, you cannot go borrowing. If you cannot go borrowing, you cannot go and develop the economy. So this is extremely important that things get done. When I had my first meeting with President Zelensky, I asked, what about the good reform which has been done in the last years, for example, like in healthcare? Should we Estonians who have been heavily involved in these reforms, should we continue, or will the baby be thrown out with the bathwater? And he was very clear, no, what good progress there has been in reforms in digitalization of the country, these processes will continue, and they do continue. And we are now in the country which is struggling. Germany is very much struggling in doing something which Ukraine took in its stride. Ukraine has Trambita. It's the platform based on which all the Ukrainian public service will be digital in a couple of years. Think of it, it's a country at war, a country which is not in high-income ranks, but it is a country which is ready to offer digital services to tens of millions of people. Does it sound something? For me, it sounds nothing less than promising for the economy of Ukraine in the future. Because as I was also telling in the conference in Kiev, I don't see in Europe any other region which could compete for foreign investment better than Ukraine. On one condition, the rule of law. Second condition, the rule of law. And third condition, the rule of law. If Ukraine can achieve that, I'm quite sure that it will have a lot of foreign investment coming in. Because Europe is full of money, not finding anywhere to invest to get some return, and Ukraine is there, ready to grow, full of potential, lacking only this one thing, rule of law. And you know, all the rich people of Ukraine, your assets will be worth much more when Ukraine will be the rule of law country. Because, you know, if the assets are in such a country, they will be much more liquid and their value will rise. So I'm quite sure that it is in the interest of absolutely each and everybody, business people, simple people, public sector in Ukraine, to rebuild Ukraine. And I'm quite confident that you will support and help your president to do so. Ukraine's economy, anyway, it grew 3.4%, and the forecast for this year is 4%. This is, I would say, exceptional. if I may make a little advertisement for business people in this room. But there is still something else which I can never not stress enough, and this is the excellent tool at the disposal of Ukrainian people and businesses, and this is the association agreement and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with the European Union. Only Eurocrats can pronounce deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, but actually this is what makes Ukraine really economically part of Europe. If a country once gains the access to the European market, this country is out of the woods, I can tell you. Our country, well, was helped this way, and I'm quite sure this will be the same also for Ukraine. So, it looks pretty good, the picture. There is a lot of work to be done. Plans are good. Execution, well, I know there is no more impatient politician in the world than President Zelensky. He is working hard to get the reform done. And if he cannot make it done, then, well, we don't know what will be the next, but I count on him being able to do it. So I'm pretty optimistic about Ukraine's domestic development, but I have to now turn back to the topic where I'm much more worried, and this is the external environment. Well, Russia continues clearly to support the rebels in Donbas region. The casualties this year amount already to 20. And what does Russia do? We know, actually, Russia seems interested in painting itself out of the corner over the Ukrainian question. But what I'm worried about is that we in Europe are so eager to help Russia that we might do this on the expense of Ukraine. I've told this equation many times. I know that there is this game going on. Russia moves 2%, and since we are so, well, eager to normalize the relations, we tell this was 20%. Something gets done. I mean, it's no small thing, exchange of prisoners, and congratulations on being free. But it's a tiny step. The war is continuing. Crimea remains occupied. Free vessels were returned. It's a good thing, even if they were, I understand, bare to their bones, but they were returned. A good and positive thing. But I mean, it was a problem created by Russia in Kerch Strait after already all the facts in Donbass and Crimea. Why are we so happy and so eager to recognize that this was an important step? No, it was a small step. It was exactly such a 2% step, which only us, our side, in our eagerness, is sometimes ready to count as a 20% step. It wasn't a big step. What would be a big step? Well, President Zelensky took his big step. That was to promise devolution to the regions of Ukraine, not only Donbass, but all regions of Ukraine. It was a huge step, and it was not politically a cheap step to take, yet he did. Now, what should we demand then from the other side as a step of the same magnitude? In my understanding, nothing less than total withdrawal from Donbass region and a monitoring mission. Monitoring mission where? On the border between Ukraine and Russia. Repeat, on the border, not on conflict line. On the border. And only then can we have democratic elections in the region. And I don't think we should try somehow to make a compromise where President Zelensky has to give more than he did already with the devolution decision. I think we should stand strong for Ukraine. And why we should stand strong for Ukraine is very simple to understand. After Georgia, we didn't stand strong at all. And then Crimea happened, the avalanche arrived in Ukraine. And we are not standing strong only for Ukraine. We are standing strong for Europe without wars. Because if we let these red lines pass, if we return to the business as usual, the question is what next? Because the equation will be after Georgia, 6 months maybe. After Ukraine, 6 years maybe. After next conflict, well, it's tolerable. It's not indefinitely. Ruined relations, sanctions, etc. Because the Western side, the rule of law side, the liberal democratic side will be so eager, and we will be played based on that we are so eager. So we need to have strategic patience. I've told it so many times, and I cannot repeat it more. If I had a glass, and I have one, I would raise it to strategic patience to help Ukraine. This is the best way we can help Ukraine in the future. Skål. Wanna use mine?
We can share.
We can share.
We'll share. Well, thank you, yet again. You began with saying that Ukraine should be understood not as a frozen conflict, but as a forgotten conflict. And we have some people from America here. What is it that people who don't understand the importance of Ukraine are missing? Why is it so important to you? Why can we not afford to forget about Ukraine?
Because we are holding in Ukraine, as I said, two red lines. One is to help Ukraine, the other is to protect liberal democratic world, to protect the Helsinki Final Act, to protect international law, to make sure that power does not decide, but the rule of law decides. And if we don't understand that, and we say economy is much more important, and there is a lot of business which we are foregoing because of the sanctions, etc., then actually we are giving away our values for whatever, 30 seconds.
You said that, I think 3 times, rule of law, rule of law, rule of law. As a successful political leader yourself, it's one thing to call for the rule of law. What have you learned that is essential to make the rule of law a reality?
Well, many people think that, for example, having a digital state will create rule of law automatically. It doesn't. Many people think that having more transparency in the processes simply will create rule of law automatically. It doesn't. There are 2 ways of arriving at the rule of law. One is to create strong juridical system, which will from bottom up make clear that more and more and at higher and higher level people get caught if they do not appreciate the law and well use their power. This is a long way forward, and I think this has already been tried in Ukraine. The other way is from top down, and this is that the political leaders declare and demonstrate that they themselves believe in rule of law. Then the whole nation starts to understand, and then things will change much quicker. I believe having an understanding that without rule of law there cannot be economic development is the best incentive for simple people to understand. But if there is no rule of law, which means that, for example, a small foreign investor cannot go to the court against the state and win, or against a big businessman and win, then there cannot be economic development. Because Ukrainian economy has for a long time relied mostly on the big companies. Big companies can manage every kind of state, corrupt state, heavy bureaucracies, etc. SMEs cannot. Ukraine lacks SMEs. Ukraine needs much more SMEs, but SMEs cannot survive in a biased environment. And if normal people understand it, then they demand it. And politicians are simple animals. You, kind of reward them with votes for something, they will do more of the same thing.
I'm glad you said that and not me. I could get in a lot of trouble for that comment. I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to open it up, if that's all right with you, which is you issued what I thought was a pretty explicit warning that we should not pay the Russians too much for too little, and that we should be quite demanding when it comes to the Donbass and hold out for that. My question is, imagine we could do that. How does one reward, if Russia were to take significant steps to get its forces out, withdrawal, agree to monitoring at the legal border, how would one respond to that, yet still make clear that what had happened in Crimea was unacceptable? How does one thread that needle?
Yes, what is my biggest worry is that one day we will sit exactly in the Cold War situation, and as an Estonian, I feel very strongly about it. I know nobody recognized the occupation of the Baltic states, and we are very grateful and eternally grateful for that in the Baltic states, but business was very much the usual. Yep. And I think we should learn from the history and not return to the business as usual. But to your question, the technical roadmap has been agreed because some sanctions have been posed on for some things and the others for the other. So if things get resolved, then of course these sanctions could be taken off, but not before. And what is the worst thing is to start looking for excuses why we could, remove sanctions because they are not working. Who tells sanctions are not working? The next trouble in Europe has not been created, so sanctions are working. You cannot say they're not working.
Good philosophy, never to negotiate against yourself. Okay, we'll take 1 or 2 questions from the floor, if there's any interest. I see a hand in the back. Yes, ma'am. Right there, you've got a microphone. If people to identify themselves and keep their questions crisp, that would be appreciated. And if people would turn off their cell phones, that would also be appreciated.
Thank you. Madam President, my name is Maria Ionova. I'm a member of the Parliament, European Solidarity. It's my third term. And thank you for your statement. We were always feeling your support and strong messaging. As we know, during these 2 days on Munich Conference, we are discussing 12 steps which Ukraine has to implement and to do to have a peace in our country. But what do you think? Russia has started this war, and do you think it is possible that European leaders can make 12 steps for Putin to implement to renovate Ukrainian territorial integrity? Thank you.
I'm not so sure that European Union has ever been, would ever be such a prescriptive body. European Union is a body created on liberal democratic values, and it's always ready to talk, discuss, and negotiate with its neighbors. Me, myself as well. We stand together and we talk. Russia is also a neighboring country, and a country which many of our country's citizens love dearly because they still have relatives living there. They are of the Russian origin, and they are very sad to see that their country has not taken the positive democratic road forward. But this is something we cannot do nothing about. What we can do something about is keep talking, and keep talking with a single voice for 27. Each and every one, when we do talk together. And if we keep doing this, this is our way of changing things globally. What else can Europe do, of course, is allow Ukraine the closest relation possible with the European Union. I've been calling for discussing in the future an arrangement for Ukraine, and for that matter, for the other Eastern partners who so wish to come closer to Europe. Allowing Ukraine closer to Europe is a very important thing. Many things have been done, lots of financial support has been given, and I very much appreciate that what the European Union is doing in Ukraine. But I think there needs to be also a further light at the end of the tunnel for this country. This will keep the pull among the Ukrainian people as well, the hope that one day all will come right.
I want to thank President, not Prime Minister, Kaljulaid, both for being so intellectually honest and direct, but also for being so committed and principled. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and it was my first time ever to be the warm-up band for a rock star. Thank you.
And now, without further ado, I would like to welcome and invite to the microphone the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. A great pleasure, great honor to be here. Too many words for one day for me, but it's very important because we speak about war in our country. I will speak Ukrainian language. It's our native language. Can you take it, please? Not everybody is good. We'll understand each other. Шановні, now I will wait. Шановні пані та панове, я дійсно радий вітати усіх присутніх і вважаю проведення даного заходу в дні Мюнхенської безпекової конференції дуже слушним. Ми розуміємо, наскільки важливо для України не зникати з радарів світової уваги, особливо зараз. Особливо у безпекових питаннях. Так, дійсно, перед сучасним світом сьогодні стоїть чимало викликів та загроз, але війна в Україні та анексія Криму тривають, на жаль, тривають 6-й рік. І це не повинно стати для міжнародного співтовариства звичним станом речей. Про стабілізацію безпеки в європейському регіоні можна буде говорити лише тоді, коли на Донбасі пануватиме всеосяжний мир і Україна відновить свої території в межах міжнародно визнаних кордонів. Сьогодні, чи не вперше за останні роки, експерти помічають реальний прогрес у наближенні миру. Нова українська влада дійсно робить для цього, повірте мені, усе можливе. Як я сказав на останній нашій зустрічі декілька хвилин тому, і це є правда, це є сутність того, що відбувається у світі, особливо в центрі Європи. Не ми почали цю, на жаль, криваву війну, але нам її закінчувати. Для цього Україна продовжує незмінно рухатись дипломатичним шляхом, виконуючи домовленості, досягнуті у нормандському форматі. Можемо відзначити позитивну гуманітарну подію, яка сталася наприкінці 2019 року. Це взаємне звільнення утримуваних осіб, завдяки якому 76 українців повернулись додому. Бачу пана Асєєва, дуже радий, що ви з нами. І бачу наших героїв, наших моряків. Радий, що ми хоч чимось вам допомогли, тому що ви допомагали завжди, захищаючи Україну, нашу незалежність. Вдячні вам. І вам можна поаплодувати. В той же час ми не зупиняємось. І заради звільнення усіх наших українців, які знаходяться на тимчасово непідконтрольних територіях Донецької та Луганської областей, в Криму і на території Російської Федерації. Ми також констатуємо, що, на жаль, незважаючи на домовленості усіх сторон, не досягнуто повного припинення вогню. За 2 місяці українські позиції були обстріляні більше 400 разів, внаслідок чого продовжують гинути наші захисники. Вважаю, що без повної та сталої тиші неможливо рухатись до вирішення будь-яких політичних питань на цих територіях, на цих українських, наполягаю, територіях. В той же час ми точно знаємо, що на Донбасі обов'язково запанує мир, а формулювання, яке мені не подобається, скажу вам відверто, тимчасово непідконтрольні території назавжди зникне. Ось що ми хочемо, щоб зникло з нашого лексикону. Це буде означати, що ми все повернули додому, до нашої батьківщини, бо все це наше. Розуміємо, що після цього перед державою постануть нові серйозні виклики, зокрема відновлення інфраструктури цього регіону. Ми не чекаємо і вже працюємо над цими питаннями. Для цього ми вперше створили в Україні фонд світового рівня. Він об'єднує в собі 2 вікна. Перше – для міжнародних партнерів, організацій та фундацій. Друге – для українського фонду, який залучатиме кошти приватного сектору та індивідуальних донорів. Основними пріоритетами фонду є великі інфраструктурні проекти, робота з місцевим бізнесом та їх доступне кредитування, турбота про найменш захищені верстви населення, подолання наслідків війни з фокусом на молодь, жінок, дітей, ветеранів. Вперше такий фонд адмініструється спільно Світовим банком, Офісом президента України та урядом України. Ми також плануємо створити міністерство з цих питань найближчим часом. Я закликаю наших міжнародних партнерів долучатись та разом зі мною почати фандрайзинг для відновлення та реінтеграції Донбасу. Ми розуміємо, що Україні належить зробити багато, дуже багато складної роботи. Ще 6 років тому ми дійсно подумати не могли, що на плечі нашої держави випадуть такі складні випробування. Сьогодні, виступаючи на Мюнхенській безпековій конференції, я наголосив, без поваги до міжнародного права з боку усіх держав, без виключення, пошкоджена система безпеки в Європі буде руйнуватись і надалі. Україна безпосередньо відчула на собі, що нинішня архітектура світу недосконала. Ми, як ніхто інший, маємо право вимагати переоцінки та актуалізації світових правил гри. Бо якщо країна відмовляється від ядерної зброї, під гарантії захисту, а потім втрачає півострів, значить, дійсно, щось не так. Це значить, щось не працює. Неможливо побудувати нову надійну архітектуру, якщо повний рівень доступу до інституцій мають лише обрані країни. В нашому світі не 7, і ще раз кажу, і не 20 країн, а майже 200 незалежних країн. 7,5 мільярдів людей на землі не можуть бути заручниками змагання декількох великих лідерів світу, які щодня вирішують, хто з них головний. Сьогодні людство чекає від світових лідерів рішень та дій, готовності поступатись власними амбіціями та економічними інтересами заради збереження головного, що в нас з вами є, людського життя. На мою думку, саме це має стати новою фундаментальною тезою у філософії колективної безпеки, збереження людського життя і людської цивілізації. Дякую.
Want to stand or sit?
Oh.
You stand.
I have to say?
Just stay for a minute.
Okay, I will say.
You don't have to do anything. You're the president.
Yes? I didn't know about it before elections.
I was just going to ask you one or two questions, and if that's all right.
Just a second. To understand each word, I need that. No? Just a second.
Another concern, okay. It is
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are we ready?
I'm ready always.
That's why you do what you do. Let's start with the diplomatic situation. Is there any reason now we've had the progress of the prisoner returns, the exchanges, but on the more fundamental diplomacy, do you see any reasons for optimism? Do you see any movement whatsoever?
Ви знаєте, я, чесно кажучи, не дуже довіряю, в принципі, словам. Я вірю в результати. І хоча я оцінюю, багато людей кажуть, що ми багато чого зробили, але для мене, для тих викликів, які ми собі ставимо, для нас це, чесно, маленькі кроки, як кроки, на жаль, як кроки дитини. Тому що так, є результати, повернули хлопців, наших моряків, головне це було, повернули кораблі. Була зустріч, важлива зустріч в нормандському форматі. Чому? Є результат. Після цього 76 українців повернулись додому. Є результат. Спочатку трішечки зменшився вогонь, і це було правдою, зменшились жертви. Потім я отримав статистику, і у січні я побачив знов збільшення, знов жертви. Було дуже боляче. І ти, що ти робиш? Ти починаєш продовжувати діалог. Я не думаю про дипломатію. Ми просто дзвонимо всім колегам, всім представникам і лідерам нормандської четвірки, проговорюємо, давайте заспокоїмось. Зменшуються постріли. Домовились про 2 великих трека обміну. Практично домовились. Тьфу-тьфу-тьфу. Вибачте. І дійсно зараз говоримо про повернення 200 українців. Це великий трек. І не тому, що це ми повертаємо когось додому. Їх чекають. Просто їх сім'ї. Мені здається, це важлива робота. Як буде далі, коли ми закінчимо війну? Не залежить тільки від України, від української сторони. Тому що в моєї ментальності, в моїй особистій культурі і в моєму мозку я закінчив війну. Це наша територія. Це приблизно, знаєте, як кажуть, а що, коли Крим буде українським? А він і був. Він і був. Але не всі усвідомлюють це, на жаль. Тому ми будемо робити все, щоб ментальність і розуміння світу, таке, яке є у українців, щоб воно було у всіх, від кого залежить сьогодні мир на Донбасі і повернення нашої рідної землі.
Mr. President, if I may be self-referential and raise a question about your relationship with my country, the United States. We noticed in the new budget that the President and the administration have submitted to the U.S. Congress, there's $365 million in aid to Ukraine. We don't need to rehearse or repeat all that has gone on in recent days, weeks, months, and years. How would you, though, now characterize your relationship with the United States? How do you see it? What do you feel good about? What still gives you grounds for concern?
Дякую за запитання. Ви знаєте, по-перше, мені приємно, що коли ви кажете, давайте проговоримо про стосунки України і стосунки Сполучених Штатів Америки, ви не починаєте зі слова «імпічмент». Тому що я вже звик, коли ми говоримо про відносини наших країн, люди чомусь зосереджуються саме на цьому питанні, а не на питанні наших стратегічних відносин. І тому що вони дійсно стратегічні. У нас міцні відносини. Сполучені Штати нас підтримують. Ви сказали 360 мільйонів. В цілому допомога розраховується на 2020 рік у розмірі біля $700 мільйонів США. І що мене бентежить, ви запитали, поки ми все це не отримуємо, ми не заспокоїмось. Для нас це дуже важливо. Тому що Сполучені Штати, і я тут бачу нашого Курта, спецпредставника колишнього, і у нас дійсно всі, дуже багато людей. Президент Сполучених Штатів, президент Трамп. У нас було дуже багато розмов, не тільки ті, які ви читали по телефону. У нас дійсно була і особиста зустріч, і Сенат, і Конгрес. Вони дійсно підтримують Україну. Дійсно, не на словах. Дійсно, постійно. І найголовніше, що ми дійсно це відчуваємо. Тому ми і кажемо, що ми стратегічні партнери. Я, правда, забув другу частину вашого питання, я так довго відповідав на першу. It's okay? Окей.
Are you prepared to take a question from the audience here? Can we do one of those as well?
Yes.
One?
I'm always ready. I'm ready. 1.5.
Let me get Ambassador Vershbow, who...
I'm Alexander Vershbow from the Atlantic Council, former Deputy Secretary General of NATO. In your speech at the town hall, Mr. President, you laid out a very ambitious plan to hold elections in the now occupied parts of Donbass this October. First, do you see any signs that Russia would cooperate with that? And do you see any role for the international community in the event that there is progress, either in the form of peacekeepers or international police, to create the secure conditions needed for elections?
Дякую вам за запитання. Якщо ми кажемо, якщо ми говоримо про безпекову ситуацію на територіях, де ми зможемо проводити вибори, давайте, по-перше, з першої частини, коли ви кажете, чому в жовтні, чому ми хочемо, тому що і ми ведемо туди, тому що це певний сигнал, що ми єдина Україна. Все починається з самого початку, з виборів. Ми хочемо одні й ті самі дати, тому що це дуже важливо і це впливає на ментальність людей, на деяку частину людей, які живуть на тимчасово окупованих територіях. Тобто ми разом обираємо, у нас ми одна країна. Це такий, ви знаєте, дуже важливий ментальний, інформаційний сигнал. Що для цього потрібно? Мало, на жаль, тільки нашого бажання. Повинна бути згода всіх лідерів нормандської четвірки. Мені здається, і Германія, і Франція підтримують цю ініціативу, але ми для цього, щоб проводити там вибори, повинні розуміти, що вони можуть пройти за законом України, тобто там повинна бути повністю нормальна безпекова ситуація. Так, ми говоримо зараз і про секторальне розведення. Про це, на жаль, немає зараз часу. Це, що не суперечить мінським домовленостям, але інший погляд на розведення. Як це зробити швидше? Як повністю показати на одному прикладі однієї ділянки вертикально, де є повністю встановлена безпечна ситуація. Що стосується хто може упродовж виборів і чи підготовки, я би навіть сказав, я би так не забігав наперед, а упродовж цієї ситуації, хто може забезпечувати безпеку, так, ми бачимо, що це спільні патрулі. Я піднімав це питання на нормандській зустрічі, зараз ми це обговорюємо і в Мінську. Я думаю, що у нас є можливість дотиснути, тобто там будуть як українці, так представники тимчасово окупованих територій, так і ОБСЄ. Без нагляду ОБСЄ і без того, щоб ОБСЄ сказало, що у нас повністю безпечна ситуація, ніхто не може проводити вибори я просто не хочу це багато разів повторювати. Ми розуміємо, що вибори не можуть відбутися, поки ми не контролюємо кордон між Україною і Росією.
Mr. President, you'll be relieved to know this is the last question. You mentioned the I word, which is impeachment. I did not mention it for the record.
Thank you very much.
But the word that often is mentioned in the same breath as Ukraine in the United States is obviously corruption. So how do you answer that? What is the state of your efforts? What is the degree of progress? What do you see as still that is before you in order to reduce corruption here? President Kaljulaid talked about people investing in Ukraine, the importance of the rule of law. How far do you think you've traveled down that path?
Ну, ви знаєте, є такий вислів: риба гніє з голови. І тому сьогодні голова держави, а саме президент України, і завжди, я впевнений, президент будь-якої країни, це є не просто обличчя країни, а приклад того, чи можемо ми говорити, що та чи інша країна корумпована. Я впевнений, що 100% людей, які мене знають, і населення України, знають, що я людина ні в яких корумпованих схемах не був ніколи замічений. Тому, мені здається, це перший крок, який був зроблений, і тому така велика і підтримка була саме мене на виборах президента України. Далі йде вертикаль влади, підбір команди. Далі є уряд. Я сьогодні не бачу за 8 місяців нашої складної, не завжди дуже вдалої, але наполегливої роботи, щоб люди з уряду були корупціонери. Тому я хотів би всіх трішечки заспокоїти з приводу рівня корупції в Україні. Ви знаєте, і про це я говорив неодноразово, і особисто президенту Трампу. Давайте почнемо змінювати відчуття від України, що вона корумпована, хоча б з того, що не треба постійно про це говорити, тому що під це немає ніякого фундаменту і немає доказів. Так, у нас є проблеми за багато років зі складом в деяких правоохоронних органах, ну, на те воно і життя. Тобто ми зараз перезавантажуємо, вже перезапустили Генеральну прокуратуру, зараз готується перезапуск реформи, перезапуск Служби безпеки України завдяки реформі Служби безпеки України. Зараз вже розглядається законопроект, який в комітеті, і я впевнений, що найближчим часом з'явиться в парламенті. Тобто крок за кроком, але тільки своїм прикладом. Бо якщо президент бере хабарі, тому і імідж України, що вона така корумпована. А якщо президент чесний, то давайте зупинимо цю історію. Бо я дуже поважаю Україну, і я гадаю, що у нас багато є чим пишатися і багато є про що говорити, ніж про корупцію, яку ми обов'язково повністю поборемо. Дякую.
Thank you so much.
Mr. President, thank you. You have what we would call a daunting inbox. I think we're next going to have our panel of European ministers and officials, so I would invite them up here. And if we could do that. And just let me sort of say, and I wanted to pick up something the President said, which is the stakes here, I think, are enormous. It's not just humanitarian, it's not just the international rule of law, but also something he alluded to, which is proliferation. Ukraine set a terrible precedent for the world, and it's giving up nuclear weapons only then to suffer attack and a loss of its territory. And I think the global proliferation system very much will be affected by what happens here. So the stakes here, as large as they are locally, are also global in many ways. Okay, we are now going to transition to the first and last of our panels. And the idea is here initially to get some European perspectives on the situation in Ukraine. To my immediate right is the Monsieur Gionat, the Deputy Secretary General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. To his right is the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Miroslav Lechak. What did I say? I'm sorry. It's my second mistake of today. I apologize. Jet lag is a bad thing. Of Slovak Republic, I apologize, sir. I should know better. Next to him, we have Prime Minister Rama, who really is here with two hats. One is being Prime Minister and obviously all that, but also is the critical person in the OSCE, who is involved in all things Ukraine. Next to him is Minister Hultqvist of Sweden, who's the Defense Minister. And last but not least, I believe we have the Foreign Minister of Poland, Mr. Czaputowicz. So we have an extraordinarily rich array of experience and perspective and expertise. So I don't know how to choose, so we're just going to go in the way we introduce. I'm going to ask each of the gentlemen to make some short introductory remarks. And then we will try to have something of a conversation. Then I'm also going to be calling on people from the floor. I want to take advantage of this extraordinary American presence from the Congress, among other things. But Mr. Secretary General, over to you.
Thank you, Richard, and welcome everybody. Ambassador Ischinger, thank you for bringing such a big crowd together, like always. And also, I'm really impressed by the impassioned speech of President Zelensky and also the wise advice from the President of Estonia. Listen, at 3 o'clock, President Zelensky will be meeting Secretary General Stoltenberg. We'll be joining him for that meeting. From a NATO perspective, our support for Ukraine and for Georgia is unwavering. We visited Odessa in Kiev, Mr. President, just a few weeks ago. We are impressed, and we can only encourage you to continue your turbo reform, accelerated transformations. And coming from Romania, a Black Sea country as well, when I hear somebody of your level speaking so forcefully against corruption and against high-level political corruption, this is also music to all our ears, I believe. I also met in Kiev, not only you, Mr. President, and your excellent team, your reformist team, but also the Rada. We met also the opposition. We also met all political factions in the Ukrainian Rada. And I have to say, we're also impressed by the depth, the sophistication, and the quality of that conversation. It was really great. I also say one word about our visit to Odessa, which was on purpose. As we visited with NAC, Georgia, not only Tbilisi, but also Batumi, another port of the Black Sea. I was impressed by the young cadets of the new Naval Academy, which was built from scratch, because the original one was in Crimea. So this country was somehow forced to build from scratch new institutions, and NATO countries, and NATO, we are very proud to support that. I will say just 3 things. One, this is not only about Ukraine, and especially for our US friends and also from friends from all over the world, this is not only about Ukraine, which is such a decisively important country for Euro-Atlantic security. This is not even about the Black Sea. But this is where, from Crimea, Russia is projecting power as we speak to Eastern Mediterranean, to Northern Africa, has transformed Crimea into one of the most important military strongholds and power projection that they have. If you watch, as we watch, the military build-up in Crimea, and you also see the modernization of the Russian other conventional and non-conventional forces, this is something that we have to keep in mind. Thirdly, I'm very happy, and we have here members of Congress, bipartisan. I always appreciate that. I was ambassador to Washington. I know how important bipartisan support for any cause is. We applaud the fact that US Congress and US administration have approved $1 billion, speaking of the new budget, Richard, for the 3 Seas initiative, which connects projects on energy and infrastructures from the Black Sea to the Baltic Sea and to the Adriatic Sea. Ukraine is much more important than what it represents. Madam President, you're right, it's also a symbolical thing, it's also a moral thing, it's also a value-based thing. But Ukraine is important from many and many other perspectives, and this is something that we'll continue to invest. We have the largest number of Science for Peace projects for Ukraine because you have a tremendous industrial base. And if your reforms to transform your industrial military complex into something which is open for investments, if you'll continue to reform also your intelligence services, which is not an easy proposition, I can tell you, if you'll continue with this pace of reform, I'm convinced that sooner or later, what NATO has decided in Bucharest a few years ago will be theirs. And we really applaud the kind of intense reform and relentless effort to transform your country, because that's the essence of your success.
Thank you, sir. Why don't we get a second European view? We'll have the Slovak Foreign Minister, Mr. Lejček, will say a few words.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I was here at this lunch last year, and President Kalila had a keynote, and she was equally honest as today, but she was way more critical. And some of our Ukrainian friends did not feel comfortable listening to her very honest words. It was not about shouting out loud through the windows, but also about doing real reforms inside the country. Now, President Zelensky was campaigning on basically two major issues. One, to address the issue of corruption, introduce rule of law, and reform the country. And the second one, to stop the war. Now we know he was serious. He has done things that were unimaginable before. But can we be complacent? Of course not, because this is just the beginning. And we are, on both tracks, approaching a critical point. With reforms, we know how it is. People are generally in favor of reforms for as long as they are not affected by reforms. They hope that somebody else will be reformed, but not them. But the more real the reforms are, the more people will feel the negative impact of the reforms. And then they will start questioning, is it worth it? Is it the right way? And this is the moment for us, for the international community, for Friends of Ukraine, to step in and help President and his team, to say, this is the right way, you have to go through this. If you want a better life, and this is what you want, and this is what you deserve, this is the only way. We must not let President and his team in this alone. And the same goes for the peace. I mean, things that were done, and not only the exchange of prisoners, but and reconstruction of Stanica Luhanska Bridge, but also agreement to Steinmeier's formula. Very brave and very right. But there was a heavy criticism against the president, and I heard no strong voice from the international community saying, this is the way forward, this was the right thing to do. So, again, we must not be bystanders and observers. If we really believe that believe in President Zelensky's vision of Ukraine. I am worried about the process, honestly, because the Minsk Normandy 4 group meeting is not delivering. As a matter of fact, the most concrete outcome was agreement on lasting ceasefire, but Ukraine lost 11 soldiers in January and 35 were wounded, which is way more than what was before. And the most sensitive and most important issue about creating conditions necessary for conducting the elections, free and fair elections in Donbass, I don't see any progress. So let us make sure, let us exercise pressure on Russia, let us exercise pressure also on France and Germany to make sure that when Normandy 4 meets again, we will have clear commitments to create conditions for these elections to be credible. And I see this really as a crucial point. Finally, for us, for the international community, really let us be heard at the moments when Ukraine needs that. So as I said, the critical moments when there are questions, we have to step in and help and back President Zelensky. And second, let's make sure Ukraine will not become yesterday's news, because Ukraine is today's problem. So let's use every opportunity, such as the Munich Security Conference, to organize events like this one, to send a very strong signal that we have not forgotten, and we will not forget, and we are here to help, and we will continue our help and our assistance to Ukraine until the territorial integrity and peace is restored.
Thank you, Minister Lejček. We have an expression in American football, and it's called an audible. It's when you change the script at the last minute. So I'm going to do a little bit of a script change, and I want to go back and forth in the transatlantic spirit and get one or two American responses. I'm going to start with Senator Chris Murphy from the great state of Connecticut, which is great because it's near the even greater state of New York. And to have him say a few things, and I'm going to ask Senator Rob Portman, because one of the points that was made here is how important it is that this issue is bipartisan, that we hear from both sides of the aisle. We've also got two congressmen here but first I want to hear from the two senators.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for having us here today. We are a bipartisan delegation. Senator Portman and I have worked for a long time to support the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. Senator Johnson, Senator Barrasso, and I visited with President Zelensky just yesterday in Kyiv, and we have work to do in the United States, and we're committed to do that work. Coming out of this unfortunate episode in American political history, we have an opportunity to reinvest in this relationship, to appoint a great ambassador, to appoint a great special envoy, to make sure that meeting happens in the United States, but then also to take the next step in our security and economic relationship. This is an opportunity for the United States to step up and invest in our partnership at new levels. I mentioned at the town hall that even in the middle of the impeachment debate, we were still finding ways to come together, Republicans and Democrats, to support Ukraine. In the middle of the impeachment process, we passed legislation through the House and the Senate to apply sanctions to the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And that leverage, we think, we hope, increase the ability for President Zelensky to get a better deal. But it stands for, I think, what needs to be a comprehensive transatlantic approach. We're so grateful for the sanctions that we have implemented together. We know that they hurt in Europe more than they do in the United States. But we need to be both working on continuing those sanctions, but then also making sure that Russia doesn't find end arounds of those sanctions, like they were attempting to do with Nord Stream 2, a project that made no sense financially, was purely from beginning to end a political project for Russia. And so I am hopeful that we are going to be able to come together in new ways across the aisle in the Senate and in the House, and that we're going to be seamless with our European friends in a way that we have not always been. As we move forward to support President Zelensky. And let me just say, having visited twice since he's been sworn in, the pace of reform is really extraordinary. It is really extraordinary. And I think he is right that we need to tell that story of reform instead of telling a story that is retrospective in orientation.
Chris, can I ask you one quick follow-up? If a Democrat were to be elected this November, have you heard anything which gives you an indication of what a Democratic president or administration would be vis-a-vis Ukraine?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there is a general agreement that there needs to be a broad reinvestment in the transatlantic partnership, and that will come in many ways. But we view our national security interest in Ukraine's sovereignty as a threat to the transatlantic alliance. And I would hope, and I think I'm confident, every single Democrat that's contesting the presidential election on our side of the aisle is committed to the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. All of them, I think, believe that it is going to be a project of the next administration, should it be a Democrat, to make a massive reinvestment in the transatlantic alliance, Ukraine cooperation at the top of the list.
Great. Senator Portman from Ohio, who Republican member of the Senate and the former U.S. trade negotiator, among other things.
Richard, thank you. This will surprise you, but we're across the aisle from each other, Republicans and Democrats, and I can't disagree with anything he said, except that I hope a Democrat is not elected president. But other than that, he was good. President Zelensky said something very interesting to me, and it's consistent with the way he campaigned and now the way he's governing. He said, I don't really believe in words. I believe in results, accomplishments. And I think that's refreshing. And I think that is the reason so many of us are so strongly supportive. And by the way, you were humble as you talked about what has happened even since your inauguration, which is you have achieved results, not just on paper, and you have lots more to go. I must say I have a view that perhaps is not shared by everybody in the room, and I'm not representing the administration or necessarily my colleagues in Congress on the Ukraine caucus. We are very supportive of Ukraine, and that is with relationship to NATO. And the Deputy Secretary is here, and he did a terrific job talking about their commitment. From my vantage point, and I've been to the line of contact, as you know, I've spoken to many of your members of government, but also including your Secretary of Defense. By the way, results, the first civilian control of your military is happening right now, so that's a result. My view, for what it's worth, is that Russia is not likely to stop the aggression until a decision is made. And the decision is really by us. So for the Europeans in the room and the Americans in the room, are we going to provide our full-throated support to the point of encouraging the accession to NATO, specifically the EOP status? Because should that happen, then I believe Russia would have a different point of view. I think they're watching us. I think they're wondering, is this ever going to happen? Or will this always be in play? You've seen some recent pronouncements from Russia about the importance culturally of Ukraine to Russia. Well, we should be saying the same thing, the importance of Ukraine to us. And with EOP, you take on some responsibilities. You'll have peacekeeping forces around the world, but you also get the benefit of the training with NATO forces, and also, I think, the inescapable, then, conclusion that you will be a full-fledged member of NATO. So that would be my pitch today, is to say, all the words, as you said, don't mean much without results. Results are happening. We're pleased with that. And I hope the next step can be moving to the accession of NATO. And I thank you for being here. I thank you for you living up to your words in your campaign.
Thank you, Senator. Prime Minister Rama, an intervention.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for not making another mistake. You'd made already some.
Ouch.
But while listening to your mistakes, I thought about much more big mistake when Albania played France in Paris. They put the Andorra anthem, and we were all shocked. And after a while, the French realized that they had made a mistake. And then they apologized to Armenia for having put the wrong anthem. So thank you for... But there is even worse. There is even worse. I was 11 when OSCE was founded, and Albania was not only the only country to not participate, but was a country who bashed the creation of OSCE as an escalation of the degeneration of both the West and the Eastern world. And what is striking is that the very principal foundations of the OSCE, its keywords, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and human rights are today questioned even more than they were at that time. And this is a huge challenge, a huge, huge challenge in the meantime that there are terrible things happening for the people. I had the privilege to visit President Zelensky and the Ukrainian authorities in Kiev, but also I visited the Stanica Luhanska area, and I would very much like to bring all the East Germany far-right voters to see how life can be while complaining about how bad they are in East Berlin. It's really apocalypse now scenes, with thousands and thousands of people having to cross this bridge that, thanks God, was finally built, but was built in the width. Yeah, but he is God for the moment, Zelensky, no? He's saying not God, but President Zelensky. I'm saying you are God for the moment. So, so it's the bridge was built thanks to the president, thanks to my predecessor as chairman in office, but still it's a bridge in the width of an ambulance. And there are average 10,000 people crossing that bridge in impossible climate situation. And mostly of them are elderly people that have to go to the sites where there is the functioning Ukrainian state to get their pensions. And guess what? The ambulance cannot go straight forward till the hospital, because there is still no possibility to have an agreement on that, and there are terminal patients that have to walk. But I have to repeat what has been already said, that thanks to the President and to the new government in Kiev, there is an improvement. There is an improvement in terms of reaching out and in terms of trying to move forward on implementation of what is already the base, the Minsk agreement, which may be not beautiful, and it's not beautiful, but it's an agreement that has been signed in precise circumstances, that there is no better than that at the moment. And also following the Normandy format. Now I want to just attract your attention on one thing. Improvement means better than the worst. But just imagine, after the Normandy format meeting, there were 20,000 incidents, 20,000, and dozens and dozens of casualties still. The special monitoring mission of OSCE is doing a great job because it's the only presence that is somehow respected and accepted by both sides. And in the meantime, the hostilities are continuing, especially during the night, because the lack of capacity to monitor more consistently the whole borderline. And in that, I would use this opportunity to call upon every country, because it's very fancy to talk about, you know, how much we support, all of us, Ukraine, and we do. But supporting also the people that are living in that hell is also important. So it would not cost mountains of money. It would cost some more contribution from all OSCE countries to put some more money on technology and to guarantee surveillance during the night, and so to guarantee that no one plays around and tricks around about the incidents that are happening. And the last word I would say is the following. Yes, all of this is, as was said, but let's not fool ourselves. Because, as Mircea was saying, it's not just Ukraine. It's Ukraine, it's Georgia, it's Moldova, and it's not just about Ukraine or about Georgia or about Moldova. It's about our civilization, and it's about what we all represent, and Russia. So as far as Russia, and this is something history should have finally, or should finally learn to us, will live in the fear of being surrounded, there will not be a possible final solution. And as far as Russia will live in the fear of being surrounded by NATO and by EU and being suffocating in this circle, things does not look to become better. And there is also another element. President Zelensky has no time, has only 4 years. The other side has a lot of time. So this should be taken also in account. And of course, it's not about OSCE, it's not about myself to lecture anyone, but it's about the big powers, it's about the leaders of our coalition to think about it, because while we are discussing, I was told that Mr. Pinchuk, 16 years ago, has gathered people about Ukraine, right? 16 years ago. And it doesn't look to me that after 16 years is better, right? Okay. This is open for discussion.
But we have a...
Exactly. 16 years ago, you gathered about being very preoccupied about Ukraine. 16 years later, you have a war. We have a war. Everyone has a war. So I'm not asking what will be 16 years from now, but Richard can help us with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a bit of a time problem, so I'm going to ask people to be a bit brisk or short or crisp. I want to ask Minister Holtquist to say something about the Minsk agreement. I know he's given a lot of thought to what might be done to get things going. So I thought he might make an intervention on that.
From my perspective, there can be no talk about sphere of influence, buffer zones, unequal rights to sovereignty and territorial integrity, and there can be no states in between. I think that is very, very important, because if we don't accept international law and regulations, and if we accept buffer zones and sphere of influence or interests, then we are on a real slippery slope. And then there will be then the world order will be like that the strong dictate for the small. I think that Steinmeier's speech yesterday, when he said the smalls, they need rules and regulations, the big, they find their own ways. I think that that's very wise. And if we now discuss in a way that we should have business as usual with Russia, and that we should forget Crimea and see that we cannot solve this question, so we go back to what we call the normal situation, then we are losers, and then we will see that new things in a very bad shape will happen sooner or later. Then we will have new situations. We must understand that this conflict started with violations of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The annexation of Crimea is illegal. And about the Minsk agreement, we can see that it's not happened so much. And the reason why is that Russia's willingness to live up to its commitments under Minsk, they don't do that. No, don't withdraw mercenaries. They don't live up around control of state borders, unlimited access of OSCE to different sort of non-governmental controlled areas. Instead, they are aggravating the problems, for example, by using Russian passports to inhabitants of territories not controlled by the Ukrainian government. So I think that there is also a need of very strong international pressure to live up to the Minsk agreement. Because if agreement is not valid, if international rule and regulation is not valid, what is valid in the end of the day or in the end of the time? Then we are on a really slippery slope. So I think that the only thing we can do is to make pressure on Russia, uphold the sanctions from European Union, be united, and see that if this is not solved next week or the week after or the month after or the year after, then we must hold up the line. We cannot give up. We are in a new situation. We have a new security situation. And because of that, many countries now are upgrading their military capability and deepening their military cooperation. That's a reason for that. And Crimea and Ukraine is one of the reasons. Georgia is another reason. And military capability that are developing in Russia is the third reason. And exercises, I can talk about this 1 hour with examples of things that happened all over. But there is very important to not accept sphere of influences, buffer zones, or some such fearness for other countries, because every country have their own right for sovereignty, territorial integrity, and I have never seen that Ukraine have threatened anybody. I haven't seen that. So I see that we have Crimea as a situation, we have a war going on, and we must act with solidarity now with Ukraine. That is what most we do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Just so you can set your clocks, we've got about 10 minutes left, and we still have 3 speakers. The first will be the Foreign Minister of Poland.
Thank you. Let me just agree with President Zelensky that there is a concrete result of the meeting of Normandy format, which is the release of detainees. on both sides, very concrete, very tangible. But I'm afraid that it is the only result. Ceasefire in Donbass is not being observed. Further agreed measures on demining not implemented. Additional disengagement areas and crossing points not introduced, as well as safe access of IC special monitoring missions throughout Ukraine territory not fulfilled. At the same time, Russia denies its involvement in the conflict and tries to shift responsibility on the Ukrainian side. But at the same time, we know that presence in Donbass of weapons exclusively available in the Russian armed forces, it's evidence, it's a proof of Russian involvement. So maybe it's time to raise a substantial, very important question. Is Normandy format a good institution to deal with that issue? Look at that format. There are 3 countries, Russia, Germany and France, who look for an opportunity to start cooperation. And there is Ukraine, which is somehow cornered by them. I think that we support that because President Zelensky and Ukrainian people support that format, but maybe we have to look for other solutions. As a member of the Security Council, Poland tried to internationalize that issue. We discussed the possibility of peacekeeping operation to involve in that debate and also institutionalize presence of US, maybe UK. But first of all, there is lack of European Union as an institution. So we do not have a representative of our point of view. The only representative is Ukraine because they see it is useful. Maybe Josep Borrell should be part of that. And then we will have broader spectrum of opinions like the ones of President of Estonia. Strategic patience. It is what we are lacking at that stage. So I think as an international community, we have to start thinking what else could we do as such a community and how to bring in other actors. Russia, I agree with my predecessors, is a strategic challenge for European Union, for countries like Sweden, Poland and others. But to address that challenge, to face that threat, we should broader group of countries than only the European Union. Therefore, transatlantic relations are crucial in order to deal with that threat which Russia creates for its neighbors. NATO is crucial. Modernization of NATO is decisive. So I agree with American participants that American involvement in that conflict would be welcomed, and Poland would support internationalization of that debate. And we, of course, continue to follow advice and requests from Ukraine, because it is the only point of reference to that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call on, we have one other representative of Congress, Will Hurd, from the great state of Texas, just to make a few comments, sir. And then, pardon me? It's not a question of having or not, it's simply a question of time, and we have one other person, and I know a lot of you have to get on to other meetings. You can blame the moderator, who's now, we can make this the third mistake of the moderator.
I'll be quick. I held the first, I'm a Republican from Texas. I held the first hearing on Russian interference in the U.S. election, in the 2016 U.S. election. In order to better understand what Russia was doing, I asked my friends at the Atlantic Council, what should I be doing? How can I better understand this? They said go to Estonia. They said go to Georgia. They said go to Ukraine. And I learned something very simple. The farther away you are from Russia, the more likely you are to believe their nonsense. The closer you are to Russia, the less likely you are to believe their nonsense. And that's why it's important for us in the U.S. to learn from what's happening in Ukraine, to learn what's happening in Georgia, to learn what's happening in Moldova. And I believe that Ukraine and Georgia are the kinds of countries that should be part of NATO. Because one of the things that I learned when I was in the CIA, Be nice with nice guys and tough with tough guys. Georgia and Ukraine will make NATO tougher. The President Zelensky, you know how to be tough with tough guys. United States government, Republicans and Democrats are behind you.
Thank you. I want to give the last word to someone who President Zelensky gave a shout out to, who's been through an extraordinary ordeal and now is here freely to talk about it. Mr. Asiev.
Доброго дня, шановні присутні. Please, yes. No.
Is your microphone on?
Microphone is okay.
People should put their microphones on, headphones on, just so they can get the translation if they need it.
Ще раз доброго дня, шановні присутні. У 2012 році моє рідне місто Донецьк приймало Євро-2012. Приймало із новим аеропортом, приймало із новим залізничним вокзалом та стадіоном. Зараз у 2020 році Донецьк фактично не має ні першого, ні другого, ні третього. Але зараз там є дещо інше. Просто в центрі міста діє спецв'язниця так званого МГБ, яка має назву «Ізоляція», в якій я перебував, власне, 28 місяців свого полону. І, власне, це місце дає дуже чітке розуміння, з чим ми маємо справу на сьогоднішній день. Адже ми маємо справу вже не просто з російською агресією, коли Російська Федерація дивиться на мою країну як на, власне, непогану загородну дачу. Ми маємо справу із чимось, що вже не має взагалі жодного відношення до цієї війни. Бо коли ти примушуєш літню жінку заповзати під нари тільки за те, що вона підійшла до трішечки відкритого вікна, або примушуєш дорослу людину, чоловіка, лаяти наче собаку посеред ночі, це не війна. Це лише одне питання – ти або людина, або ні. І відповідь, вочевидь, ні. Я кажу це не для того, щоб викликати у вас якісь співчуття, бо мені співчуття не потрібні, потрібні співчуття тим людям, які ще досі знаходяться в цій ізоляції. Я кажу це задля того, щоб ми розуміли, що коли ми будемо вести перемовини з Російською Федерацією стосовно тих територій, власне, мова вже не йде просто про кордон чи економіку, хоча це дуже важливі складові. Мова йде про свободу у найвищому сенсі цього слова, яка не може бути предметом торгів. І, власне, якщо деякі наші західні колеги це не розуміють через те, що вони почуваються у безпеці завдяки тисячам домовин моїх співгромадян, то ми, українці, не маємо і не можемо дозволити собі забувати про це, адже, власне, просто зараз, і я вам це гарантую, навіть коли я виступаю перед вами у цій світлій кімнаті, у неймовірному оточенні, просто зараз в центрі Донецька когось катують. Адже це відбувається цілодобово кожного дня. Власне, я був свідком цього і прийшов сам через це. Саме тому ми, українці, не можемо собі дозволити забути про це. І це, собственно, тот самый колокол, который звонит по каждому из нас, если, я надеюсь, в эти слова еще кто-то верит. Благодарю вас.
So let me just commend Mr. Asiev for his service and sacrifice. And I think his point's an important one. We all spend our time talking about policy and politics, but at the end of the day, it's about people. And it's a good reminder. I want to thank President Zelensky for spending so much time with us and speaking here. And let me just say, we look forward to welcoming him in the United States. The American people look forward to hearing from him directly there. And let me thank Victor Pinchuk for all he does to promote the interests of Ukraine and to promote awareness of both the country's plight, but also its potential. Both are important to keep in mind. Let me apologize for those we didn't get to call on, but we had a lot of people who needed to speak, and time was a bit short. I want to apologize for the titles I got wrong, but mainly want to thank you all for giving so much time. It's good to you've proven by being here that Ukraine is not a forgotten conflict nor a forgotten country. It's very much remembered and it's very much alive. So thank you very much.